Ladies and gentlemen, while the pandemic has ushered us into an era of digitization, it has also put our digital infrastructure at great risk, with cyber attacks amid the COVID-19 pandemic rising by almost 300% in the last 1 year. And the work from home scenario has further fueled this threat. While the government has formulated a cyber crisis management plan for countering the cyber attacks for implementation by all ministries and departments of the central government, state government, and their organizations, there exists a need for organizations to focus on building resiliency to future black swan events. To highlight the significance of digital trust in the next normal, the new normal, we are joined by an esteemed panel of speakers today. Please join me in welcoming Satyavathi Divadari, CTO, CyberS Cloud. Mr. Trishneet Arora, founder and CEO, Tax Security. Mr. Abhishek Mitra, Director and CEO, Indian Cybersecurity Solutions. And to lead the session, I would once again like to invite Mr. Pradeep Khanna, Executive Director, Asia Pacific and CEO, VRARA Association, VRARA, and Global Mindset. To know, ladies and gentlemen, more about our speakers, you can download the show catalog from the upper tab on the right-hand side of your screen called the Handout tab. So if you're ready, ladies and gentlemen, over to you, Mr. Khanna.
Thank you very much, Sneha. Once again, I am delighted to talk to you from Sydney in Australia. It is 10 p.m. in the night as we are 4.5 hours ahead of India. And I'm again looking forward to this discussion on the new normal. A new normal where all of us are spending more and more time with technology. People who had not even heard of Zoom before are happily Zooming away. We live, learn, and work, and as well as socialize in a technology-driven environment. In one home, you will have, the husband, the wife, the kids, all in different rooms being online. We are shopping online. So what does this mean from a cybersecurity perspective? Are we really aware as to what are the risks? Are we really leaving our digital world all open? So what is happening over there? I would love to have this chat with our lovely panelists over here. And let me start the discussion by giving you a figure which is quite interesting. Do you know that the cybercrime industry is $6.5 trillion? That means it is the third largest economy after US and China. So just imagine the scale of activities which cyber criminals are involving in. And being the gentleman that I am, I will start the discussion with the only lady in this panel, and which is Satya. Satya, could you tell me, how are you? It is lovely, and thank you so much for raising your hand. Now, could you tell me in this $6.5 trillion business of cyber criminals, who tend to be the different sectors or actors in this business? Is it countries? Is it individuals? Or what is it?
I think it's all of them, So as you rightly said, this is the third largest economy after US and China. So that means it can't be done by individual or a group, a small group, right? So there are individualistic attacks, which are practically starting from, amateur kids or script kiddies who are attempting and attacking. That's where it starts, and then it goes all the way to politically motivated attacks and industry motivated attacks, and then I don't want to call out this opinion is my own opinion, nothing to do with my organization, but point is there are not just politically dominated, but also in the interest of a nation. Also, there are attacks happening. So
Absolutely
actually
right,
speaking,
Satya.
yeah.
Absolutely
So
right. What we see at a higher level is three categories. One is a segment which is almost akin to corporatized world. They have virtually like a corporate structure and SLAs. That is one segment. Then there are state actors. And then there is the third category, which are the hobbyists. Let me go across to Abhishek. Abhishek, there is something called the dark web. Could you tell me what is the dark web? And if I wanted to purchase email IDs, how much would it cost me to purchase email IDs? Or if I wanted to purchase credit card details, how much is it going to cost me in the dark web?
Thank you, Mr. Pradeep, for this session, and I would like you have explained in such a way, and it shows that you are also interested in this field, and you have been into the dark web as well. So let me explain you in a way that will help other people to understand as well. As we all know, dark web is like the iceberg, the part of the iceberg which is under the water, right? It's that huge, and that's the only tip of the iceberg which we see as an internet, which we all know, we Google it, right? So to access the dark web, we all know DuckDuckGo is the Google of dark web, and the Tor browser is which we use to access it. Now the point is, as you asked, how much does it cost? It varies, and to be very exact, or like hypothetically taking into this is like not only on email IDs or even credit cards. We can do anything. You can purchase drugs, it, and it will be delivered to your postal address. And also you can kill someone. You can hitman and kill someone, and that's the entire place of all those activities which are underground, which we tell it as illegal activities which goes on. And focusing on that dark web, see, not only the part of like getting those credit cards, we can purchase it easily and anybody can do it. It's not about people who knows technically. Anybody accessing it with a Tor browser goes it, give the details, purchase it, and you can use it in any e-commerce website. Apart from that, as well, there are other hackers use that to download or to purchase ransomwares, which they can use it. They don't code. Now this organized sector of cybercrime is working in such a way. The dark web is a marketplace where we can purchase ransomware, you can purchase viruses and do all those things. You need not to code. You can download it. Somebody is expert in something else. You can get in touch with them and get all those things channelized in such a way to hamper one entire company. We have seen, like I personally had been working with many of the companies where they had been previously, like they had been attacks, cyber attacks on their IT infrastructures, and while doing the forensic part, we come to know that it was not a single person doing it. It was an organized people.
Okay,
They also don't know each other personally.
Okay, you've given us a good understanding of the dark web. Let me tell you that from Australia, I can buy a credit card for as low as 50 cents. And maybe,
Yes.
you see, going by the global delivery model, I may be able to buy it cheaper in India. And I will encourage people to have
Yes.
a look at that Netflix serial called Jamtara. It's a great example of how cybercrime is happening in different parts. Although it's a fictional story, but it's a great example. Let me move back to Satya. Satya, data is the new currency. Is data security and privacy, are they issues? And what about GDPR? Is that a model framework that different countries should be taking it? So over to you, Satya.
So to me, GDPR, even though it's mentioned as Global Data Protection Regulation, every country has its own regulations. GDPR came from Europe and it's mostly enforced in Europe. However, any organization who has to deal with Europe has to go through GDPR. So that makes us, everyone, no matter Australia has its own regulations and India has its own privacy regulations, and America has its own regulations like CCPA, and Canada has its own. So every country and nation have their own regulations on the privacy. But GDPR happens to be you can think as a, a guiding force, we can say, for all the privacy
Okay.
regulations,
Let
right?
me go to the
So
other end of the spectrum. At one end is innovation, and innovation means absolutely nimbleness, and at the other end is total structure. So you got GDPR at one end and potentially innovation at the other end. How do we get the right balance in this and still ensure that, from a data security and privacy, we can still move on? Any thoughts? And this is
yes.
to you, Satya.
Yeah, I continue there. So, see, there are technologies do exist like privacy enforcing technologies, privacy in design. These are technologies which actually, what you can do is when, for example, I'll give with an example so that it touches not the regulation aspect but the simplicity aspect, right? For example, you are actually dealing with health information data. You're actually a hospital, let's say, right? When you are handling such information, you need to go through certain process called purpose centric access, and also something called it's not that everybody can access this patient information. That could be accessible by the right doctors who are actually doing the diagnosis of that particular patient, right? It should not be given to everyone and all. So how do you handle it? You can handle by defining the purpose. The purpose is the diagnosis. Purpose is the providing the what we can say advice on what should be done and providing the medicines. It's not. It could be there is a secondary purpose, alternate purpose. Secondary purpose is actually doing the research on, okay, this is the kind of symptoms, these are the medical medicines I have given, whether it worked effectively, not effectively, the research aspect, right? So actually explaining the aspect of purpose and alternate purpose and getting the consent from the patient and then using appropriately is something all the hospitals has to do, or you can say all the what we can say medical services units have to do. I mean, it may be very strong in certain countries like Europe and even Australia to a large extent, may not be at that level in India, considering the digitalization of health sector is just in the upcoming segment. So that's one of the examples. Same applies to banking, right? So privacy cannot be treated separately. It should be within the controls itself. When you are accessing the data or when you are actually collecting the data, there should be a choice for the customer to select and say, you know what, I don't want you to send me any marketing information. I don't want you to use this information I'm giving you in this form to be sent it to alternate people. So there are always, I mean, the organization has this liability to add that implicit, what you can say, check boxes to say, that I think if I request whoever is actually signing any agreement, check for the tick boxes. I've observed that people simply tick tick and then go on. Just read out, right? So the point is
Very
that is where the point of consent comes in. Are you giving intrinsic consent on, I'm ready to allow you to take my personal information to the next layer, that is marketing. And then
Thank
the
you very
organization
much.
will follow it.
Thank you very much. There are some good examples. Let me go to Abhishek. And Abhishek, I touched upon the dark web and I touched upon data security and privacy at the moment is because I'll just give you another example. A couple of years back in Sydney, I got a phone call at 5 o'clock in the morning. And the person on the other hand said to me that I am so and so from Wellington police station speaking. There has been a major accident. Are you Pradeep Khanna? Is this your date of birth? Is this your address? I said, yes, yes, yes. Imagine that I'm sleeping, I'm waking up and taking this phone call. And then he says that, look, we are doing some investigation into a serious accident which has happened. So I want to make sure that you are not impacted or you don't have somebody who's impacted in the accident. And all this discussion that we are having will be put up on a website, on the police website. And just you can set up a password to access the website. Tell me some 4-digit number that you want to set up as a password.
Yes.
Now, the moment he said that, even though I was sleepy, it rang a bell in me because I am the former head of global delivery for IBM Australia and New Zealand, and I'm quite literate in so far as this thing. So I gave a fictitious number. Next day morning, what happens is that we are checking our bank account and we suddenly notice that our phone is not working. After some time, we get an email which is telling us that X thousand amount of dollars have been taken away from our bank account. So why I'm giving this example? Because I talked about the dark web. I talked about data security and privacy, how people can get hold of your personal details, and they can then get on to your bank account and transfer money. But on a different note, some of the key issues which come up in cybersecurity today are fizzling, malware, ransomware, insider weaknesses, etc., etc. Let me go to fizzling first. Can you explain what is fizzling and give an example of how fizzling happens? This is to you, Abhishek.
Fizzling, phishing, and email spoofing. Okay, there are different ways of explaining. Okay. And see, for example, another way of doing it is also doing a social profiling. Okay, now we share all our private data happily in our social medias, and those data are also getting captured, and all those friends across in the in our friend list see those things, and they can have a social profiling done, and they can use those things in as an in the password field of any once they want to get an access to your Gmail account, or want to get an access to your Facebook account, or even to your you're taking pictures of your credit cards and debit cards, even you don't know, you're not aware of it when it goes to it to them. So those social profiling things and these kind of let me explain phishing in complete look-alike website of some, for example, a recent incident that happened where a Cognizant joinee was trying to join in, and he was asked to update his KYC details, and he was sent the backend portal of Cognizant, which was a phishing website of Cognizant backend employee portal. Once he received that, he gave his ID and password and clicked put on the next button or OK button, and he again was redirected to the actual page. And in the meanwhile, he gets the hacker gets all the details of admin, the username and the password, and then he uses it against it. So even a company having that security policies in place can, once a person is not educated enough, is not looking into the URLs properly, you can get into this kind of.
Okay, so now let's move across to the lady, Satya. We often hear the term denial of service. What is denial of service? And can you give an example of that?
I think the denial of service is well explained during the WannaCry movement. We have seen that a lot, right? In 2017, it happened. I'm not sure how many of the people are still remembering. So it's actually connected to multiple ways. So one is actually just sending large number of requests and then chop the network. That's the way we used to see DOS, or denial of service attack. So what we are seeing now is the different way, which is actually ransomware. Sending a ransomware through silly looking, or actually real looking, like the example Abhishek given, a phishing mail sent to you, and the person simply clicks it and actually deploys the malware. With that malware, the person system got impacted, and that system actually impacts the major servers which are having it. So one of the example is NHS, which is the National Health Sciences for UK. I think all the UK hospitals have been hacked, and then they cannot access the hospitals for a day. I think I don't remember the exact number of hours they were not able to do. At least 10,000 of patients were sent back home because the systems were impacted by this virus called WannaCry, and then they have been asked to pay a certain ransom. Only then they could be released, right? How did they handle it? What did they do? I am not aware because it's not a public information. But the point of inference here is that there is a possibility when you are clicking a mail which is actually looking suspicious. It always looks like actually it's similar, like it's a Nike, but it is not Nike. It is NLKE, right? You see that logos coming up with different titles. It's almost similar to that. When, for example, the title what you are seeing is floor.bz, it could be FI instead of FLO or .bz. It could be F1000R.bz, and it looks similar. And people might think that it is the same website, and they end up reaching there, and practically the system got hacked. Right. So that is the kind of what we can say mechanisms which are coming in. It is not just one technology. It's not just phishing. It is also sending a mail which is proof, and there is a malware is attached. And there are in some areas when it is related to collecting the data, it actually sits on the system and keep on collecting. You might remember the old story of Target, which is what I quickly got it now in my mind. It's where a fridge got attacked, and actually it attacked the POS system and started collecting millions of the credit card information, and then that was posted public. Right? There are multiple things attached to it. One is the virus which came through USB, and the vulnerability within the refrigerator, and the vulnerability in the system which is idle, and the protection system, which is actually your SIM. Even though the attack was detected, they didn't take. So there are a lot of things which connects to this kind of what we can say the attacks. A chain of what we can say systems which happen. It connect back to Pradeep, your initial point. These kind of things are target attacks. These are not some mature games. These are targeted. Sometimes targeted to a company, or sometimes they are targeted to a nation. Sometimes it's politically motivated.
Absolutely right. And let me go on a different tangent. Are you working from home at the moment? So is the gentleman who walked around behind your back and is playing with the Jula your husband? Well, jokes apart, let me now move on to Abhishek. Abhishek, Satya, oh, that's all right, Satya. This is my way of joking. So, Abhishek, now, Satya talked about ransomware. Satya talked about malware. Let me go to a recent example of colonial pipelines in the US, which was gas pipelines. They were the subject of a ransomware attack. And the bounty or the ransom which was asked was a couple of $100 million in bitcoins. In order to safeguard themselves, because this pipeline attack actually stopped the flow of oil in certain states of US and caused a big crisis, they paid up the ransom amount in bitcoins. Later on, we found that FBI was successfully able to access the digital wallet of the people who were behind ransomware and recover their amount. Now, what does this tell you? And also, what they found was that how the cyber criminals were able to access it was through one single weak password in the system. So what does this tell us about the current state of play of industry? Do you think industry is prepared? And what do you think is the state of play in India? This we are talking about the Western countries where
To be
supposedly there could be a much higher level of awareness of cybersecurity. But what are your thoughts?
to be very honest to Mr. Pradeep, I had been working across the globe and getting projects. 99% of the projects have come to us directly, and we haven't pitched, so that's quite good. But the point is, across the globe, the thing which is happening as a VAPT, like we provide a services as vulnerability assessment and penetration testing, and we are not providing any kind of endpoint solutions. So on that ground, people are looking for testing their IT infrastructure. Definitely, they are getting aware. Definitely this pandemic has boosted the cybercrime industry, has also forced industry like the MSMEs and also the enterprises to look into in such a way that only the endpoint will not give them the protection that they want to. Now they need to go for penetration testing which is required, and that is where they are going for it. In India, we have seen in last 5 months there is a huge rise in penetration testing projects which have come to us, and it's not limited to that. There is also requirement of SOC which has increased. I will not name the top clients, but some of the clients in providing purified waters, they are also into getting into the SOC. Big clients of like banking industries in Bhutan is our client. So these people are looking for the SOC services as well. They want those things to be monitored in a real-time basis, and as we are joined up with one of the like Israel-based companies, so it's given an extra advantage to us as well to provide this kind of a solution. But as a whole, to your answer is yes, they are getting prepared, but they were not as much prepared previously before the pandemic, because before the pandemic, there was incidences. On an average, it normally takes 48 hours to understand that there is an incident and that incident has happened. Now, looking into that, during the pandemic, people were working from home. They knew that they are opening up spaces or gaps where the hackers can get into. Now, on focusing on that, people like companies have prepared themselves. They had gone for this penetration testings of their IT infrastructures. Companies who haven't been looking into, they have been hacked and their details have been shared. They had paid amounts in like cryptocurrencies as that are not traceable. They had been on this ground. So they are like, if they are not doing it willingly, they are being forced during this period of time.
Okay, let's move across to Satya. Satya, in IT, risk management is a defined methodology. Do you think we can set up a risk management framework for cybersecurity?
Yes, I think it started with risk management, right? So initially, we are all like compliance guys, right? So now it's happening in the other way, that we have been considered as enablers, or security should be along with the board or should be part of the the leadership group, etc. Otherwise, the majority of the time, what we were doing is managing compliance and managing the risk. Okay, do the assessment, wherever the gaps are, call the auditor, check the gaps, fill it, comply it, signed off, done. Right? That used to be the case. Today, I think it's actually more than the checklist-based approach what we were following on the risk. The approach is changing in a way of all the way to from the design to the implementation, right? So that is the way we should be progressing. I think there are a lot of organizations that are progressing already. Think about the cloud, right? So now, if you are actually logging in or moving your systems to cloud, I think what you check is, what am I moving? Am I moving the critical assets, or am I moving the junk in the junkyard? I think first of all, you need to know which are the crown jewels and which require to be encrypted, which doesn't require to be encrypted, etc. Rather than just moving everything onto the cloud, right? That's the idealistic principle. It's not that is what is happening, right? So the key note why I'm calling this out is conducting a risk-based study of the assets which you are handling, whether it is on cloud or on-prem or anywhere. I think that helps it. Addressing the controls which you are fitting in. Otherwise, you might be actually adding multiple layers of controls for actually the garbage, rather than and leaving the crown jewels in the hallway, right? There is a chance, and you don't know because that's not discovered at all. And when you are thinking about these concepts like cloud, you have tons of data lying there. And how do you discover? If you can't discover, then what you can protect, right? If you are protecting, are you protecting the right assets? It's all based on the criticality and the risk that is connected to it. I think that's where the study of risk is more important in the today's situation than the previous times. That time we used to think in the angle of business process risk. When I started my journey in information security 16 years back. So it's all about list down the business process. What are the major risks? Where are the areas you need to implement the controls? And then, as I said, go by the checklist. Now, you need to also understand what are the critical assets you need to handle, whether it could be people, technology, and the process. Identify that and apply the controls. It could be something like, as Abhishek mentioned earlier, vulnerability testing, application security testing during the development stage rather than the penetration testing post production. You can't do that. You can't take a risk of taking down an application just like that. Now you need to actually better do the design and verification before, so that you can reduce that risk at the early run. So that's one of the angles. And as I said, for data security, doing the discovery and then protect it, do the encryption or masking, so that you can handle it appropriately, right? So all connects back to, and one more is zero trust. You can't give access to everyone. Now, earlier we used to have multi-layer networks, right? You have a trusted network, and then DMC, right? What is trusted network today? There is nothing called trusted network. Everybody is everywhere, right? So in that situation, only thing works is zero trust. So if you are going through zero trust, then you need to actually validate every access coming in. Does it mean that everybody has to go through MFA? That will be too costly, right? So then you need to go by a risk-based approach, give them minimum access, and anything above that, ask for challenging questions. It could be additional authentication or out-of-band authentication, anything like that. So I think there are multiple methods to handle it, but core lies in the question what you raised, the risk-based approach.
Okay, so now moving on to Abhishek. One of the things which Satya did not mention was insurance. Insurance is a very well methodology of managing risks. What about cybersecurity insurance? Is cybersecurity insurance available in India? And if yes, no, how high does cybersecurity insurance rank in terms of importance? This is to you, Abhishek.
Thank you, Pradeep, Mr. Pradeep, for asking this. Thank you, Mr. Pradeep, for asking this question. To be very honest, we in our project, what we do, we mentioned that we provide 70% cyber insurance attached to the project, what we do. So that comprises that if any incident that happens, and that is on the scope of the work, and we have done it, and we have certified that it is fully prevented, and all the gaps are being closed. If still anybody can access it and the data is logged, we will pay you back 70% of the amount, and we term it as cyber insurance. But that's not the actual term of insurance in that sense. Yes, there are companies which provides cyber insurances in India. There is also companies which are in association with the banks and providing this kind of cyber insurance. There are premiums that the companies do pay, and that is very much important in this aspect. Cyber insurance, as per I have heard this cyber insurance term way back in 2015-16. I attended a conference, and at that point of time, one of the person was there in a panel discussion from an cyber insurance background, which company only provides cyber insurance. That's very important. That's the need of the hour. If a company wants to have this cyber insurance, that gives a good boost to their IT infrastructure to get it more protected, in the sense that they're giving it, they're insured in that aspect. And also, insurance can only, as you have already mentioned, that about the GDPR. If this kind of a law which is there, which can guide, then the insurance can work along. Provided that in India is focusing on Personal Data Protection Act, which is still now not being as a law enforced. Now, if that comes in, Now, how does it have it? As per the GDPR, as Ms. Satya was telling that you need to check mark those things, what things you willing to share. Now you have that like things that you want to share to the companies, and there are penalties if they are not like adhering to those laws. Now, if that is there, then this insurance will be much more helping both the parties, also the customers as well as the companies, and they're getting insured.
Absolutely right. And globally today, cybersecurity insurance is ranking at the fifth most important risk that insurance companies are offering cover with. And also, when you take out an insurance cover, it is quite similar to taking out an insurance cover from your home, contents and goods. And when you take out an insurance cover, the insurance company will ask you as to what are the protection mechanisms that are there in the physical world. And likewise, cybersecurity companies will also ask you as to what measures have you taken to protect yourself from cyber criminals. So let me go across to Satya, and let's go on to the topic of emerging technologies. And here, see, today the biggest impact is coming not by one technology or emerging technology, but how different emerging technologies fuse or blend with each other. So how AI is blending with AR, VR, IoT, and so on and so forth. Now, what are your thoughts in regard to cybersecurity and emerging technologies? Do you think that this issue of cybersecurity is being adequately being covered in emerging technologies? Let's take AR, VR as an example, but you can use any other example. So over to you, Satya.
So I think I'll take IoT as an example. I think that
Sure.
would be
Sure.
easy for me to speak about. Maybe
Please.
AR, VR, you can educate us. Okay, so coming to IoT, I'll just give an example of what we are reading or seeing right now, which is actually so automated cars, right? Which we already seen or heard, and it's happening. It's not the whole thing, and not just the automated car, which requires a complete automation, but every car, every what we can say costly car, which has the all the luxury features in their board, control panel board, also have certain features to control the car itself. It may not be completely driving the car, but it can control some systems inside the system, inside the car mechanics, right? So how, I mean, there is, the mechanics are no more the mechanics which are actually working by brake, gear, clutch, but it could be actually worked by the electronic impulses, which is going by the content what is there. So as long as it is driven by a firmware, as long as it is software, it could be attacked through malware, right? So once it could be attacked through a malware, it is actually easy to break by the hackers. So there are attacks being observed in particular models. I'm not going to go and speak about which model was attacked, etc. That will be very curious to find. But there are certain models which were already been identified as vulnerable. Actually, there were tests conducted saying remotely you can actually to trace the complete car and turn it around, and then you can accelerate the car, or you can actually completely switch off the AC and the entire gas system. So there are a lot of use cases to control the autonomous vehicles as well as the vehicles which just have infographics. So that's one of the story where the cybersecurity which we observe. Second is about you might have seen the story about the thermonuclear plant where the entire systems was attacked by just going through a malware which was attacking, and then the centrifuge was impacted and the entire thermonuclear system was impacted. So that was another use case on OT, right, which is actually industrial operation systems, which are completely mechanical. There is very, very limited access to technology. So coming to the other use case where we find this increasing and it is close to the people is our own, the watches and smart healthcare devices. So in certain countries, again, it may not be prevalent in India, but a lot of countries have this artificial control system. Some are to control the heart, some are to control your blood pressure, or just to monitor the heart or monitor the blood, or monitor the what you can see lung movement, different parts, right? So what if that could be attacked, right? Which means practically somebody can kill you by just doing a simple attack, right? And there were theories and there were exploits which were presented in different forums saying that this is possible. So where are we going with this kind of attacks, right? So, and coming back to your question, how far we are ahead in the journey in the cybersecurity? Do we have controls in place? Do we have standards in place? Coming to that, I think the standards for IoT is still developing. We have, at least I haven't seen a completely approved standard for a paper. We have seen multiple papers, but not the standards. So we're yet to see IoT security papers addressing different industry, different sectors, etc. So what I can say is the security controls for this is evolving, and it takes a lot of time, considering that what is there is just a small, simple firmware which uses very limited area of what we can say area to develop something. If somebody have done that efforts to attack, we can only counterattack that particular attack, but we cannot foresee what else is coming in. So it takes a
Well
lot
said.
to
Well
reach there.
said. Love it. And now I go across to Abhishek for the last question of the day. And the last question of the day is, Abhishek, insiders account for a significant percentage of cybercrime. How best do we address this particular threat?
Very well question, and thank Pradeep. The point is everyone is struggling to prevent that. Okay. I don't think anybody have mastered that, but yes, preventive actions, and as Mr. Satya was telling that you need to have that zero trust in your mind, right? And you should practice that. So until unless you have that, you won't be able to do so. Insiders definitely have that. There is that accounts to multiple data being leaked. But the point is, as per the going with the compliances, as we go through 27,001 compliances, there are standards that need to be followed. But still, companies get those standard certificate, but they don't adhere to, or even they cannot prevent the entire loss of it. But yes, zero trust should be followed, and minimum access to the critical data should be maintained. Understanding the security posture of the company is important, so that we can understand that, like as a security prospect, I might say, and then give the proper training to those people who are accessing to those critical data, and segregating those people who are not accessing those critical data. I think this kind of simple policy, but it needs to be more stringent. The standards are there, but it's not completely preventive, or preventions can be done on that end.
Thank you very much. And I was delighted with both the speakers, with the lady who is acknowledged as among the top 10 female technologists in India, and also Abhishek, who gave very good examples from a global perspective. In summing up today's discussion, all I would say is that we are increasingly living in a tech-enabled world. There is a digital layer which is coming on top of the actual person or an object. For humans, the digital twin is something like an avatar or a hologram as we go more and more into the digital world. From an enterprise perspective, digital twin is an exact replica of the physical object. And when you combine IoT and sensors, you can transmit information from the real object to the digital twin. which helps you in tracking current performance and predicting future performance. But my object of telling you all this is that would you, in your home, leave all the doors and windows open? Would you leave your key with all your neighbors, friends, and everybody else known to you? Then why would you want to do that in the digital world, where you are spending more and more of your time today? And with that, ladies and gentlemen, this is Pradeep from Sydney signing off. Please give a big round of applause to our speakers, both Satya and Abhishek, who gave some excellent thought leadership. So back to you, Sneha. And this is bye from Sydney, Pradeep signing off.
Thank you so much, sir. But before I let you go, we do have one question from the audience, and Prasad has been asking this question. So I'm going to take this. If any of you would feel free to answer. What measures, I'm guessing what major steps can be taken to protect privacy, as big tech companies have all our data? Is there any way to protect individuals from cyber attacks? What researchers are going on this?
This is an excellent question, and this is very, very topical, and I would want both of the panel members to respond with their perspectives. Satya, you first.
Okay, so what measures can be taken to protect data privacy?
So what we are talking about is the FANGs of today. They know more about us. If you Google about yourself on Google, you will find information which even you don't know. But over to you.
Yes. So let me start with the privacy, right? So privacy is actually like I think I see in the other angle, right? So private information of a person is actually a commodity for other person or other company, right? That's which we are observing. It could be, I don't want to name, but there are a lot of organizations which use our data to run it analytics, and that analytics will become insights for them to run their businesses. It applies on Facebook, it applies on Google, it applies on almost many search engines, which uses our tracks, right? What you do, what you purchase, what you searched earlier, what you did yesterday morning, today, right? So you will be surprised to know what is being collected from you. That's one, right? So once it is being collected, great, they are collecting. What can they do with it, right? You might have seen the latest penalties which Facebook and Google paid. I don't want to state the numbers, but that applies not for them, but also others. Just to tell everyone saying, guys, they are being penalized for using it for other purposes. But does it mean that it is going to protect us as an individual? Coming to the individual organization, you are speaking not for the personal aspect, how the companies can manage it. Right. So the first aspect is when a company, as an organization, you have to deal with three things. One is you want to increase the consumer coming towards your door more and more. And so you require this marketing analytics. You can't get rid of it. You want to know the habits of the person so that you can sell exactly what the person is looking for, which kind of lipstick or which kind of dress and which kind of material I can sell to the same person. I think that requires certain analytics, right? That requires, to do that, you require certain data which you need to collect from it. So the implication here is all about, as I said, purpose and consent. There are many others. There are many other principles. I'm not going to tell this privacy class now. But the point is the purpose. What is the purpose you signed off for? And what is the privacy implications you have? The purpose here is that you are here to buy something. So what is required? You require an email address, you require a delivery address. Without these two information, you cannot log in, and without having the address, you cannot get the material back. Anything else beyond that, like your trail of what did you see, what did you watch, etc., is actually a statistics of what you are doing. Your personal preferences, called user preferences, etc. So, and profiling, as I think earlier we mentioned, social profiling. All this is back-end work which happens as called as a research or analytics, right? To address that, companies are approaching different mechanisms called as pseudonymization, which is actually and anonymization. What does it mean is, as long as it is actually treated like, for example, there are 4 people here. instead of calling Satya, you can say a girl in orange, right? A lady in orange. Or out of the four, if you want to, I have to call Abhishek, a person who is wearing a suit, a man who is wearing a suit. You anonymized it, but you are still able to identify that person, right? So there are particular mechanisms where you can't personally identify. At the same time, you can still do certain kind of analytics. So there are mechanisms available. They are not simple as the way I explained. So that these are the two mechanisms people are using. Another one is masking.
Yeah, so
Masking.
in the interest of time, I will have
Yes.
to, say thank you very much, Satya, and absolutely right. Data masking is exactly a technique which has been used, in data management for quite a few years. Any last comment, Abhishek, you want to make before we sign off on the same subject?
I think Satya has mentioned everything in detail, so well explained. I don't have anything to be adding on. Just a simple psychological thing to be added is, if what thing you are sharing, that is important. So, and why it is being used and how it is being used. If these three are the questions, and why you are giving your personal data. When is your birthday? Don't give the original birthday. It's only required your email ID and your physical address to get your product delivered to your place. Give that minimal address correctly, and give them dummy data so that you don't compromise on that. And obviously think that you are hacked. Whatever you give on the internet, your entire data is available. If somebody searches ICSS Abhishek Mitra, they will definitely find my image there over the internet, and nobody has purposefully given it. They have been crawled by Google and put there in the image section. So you need to understand whatever you are giving it over the internet is made to, it will be public, and it will be utilized by companies to target you in the purpose of selling something, or nothing is free over the internet. So just think what you are sharing over the internet, and think yourself to be already hacked. You're already being compromised. Then your behavior would be on a protective way, and you will be thinking on that sense what things to be shared and what not.
Lovely. And the only comment that I would add over here is that when you give dummy data, just remember the dummy data. Otherwise, you might get locked out of your account.
Yes.
So back to you, Sneha.
Thank you so much. Can I just add, Mr. Khanna, this has been a genuine honor to host you here, and a delightful experience watching you moderate this panel discussion. And this panel discussion in itself has been so enriching, so insightful, and quite honestly, very entertaining. Thank you so very much to both the panelists, and thank you so much, Mr. Khanna.